If he wasn't ashamed to be of African descent, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to cover up? He didn't engage in the cover-up. They brought a young lady to the Prophet Muhammad for him to marry. And he said, I wouldn't work. Let me tell you the best person qualified to marry this young lady in Arabia. It's my friend and brother who used to be a slave. His name is Zayed. He's the one that's qualified. That was the Brotherhood of Islam. Toynbee got mad. The historian said the Muslims must be serious because they gave their daughters to the Arabs. They didn't tell you that. They didn't tell you that. In this country, they recognize that Islam gave you a connection. The king of Bonu wrote to the Moroccan king, and he said, our kingdom in northern Nigeria was founded by a brother, a black man that came from Mecca, Medina, and traveled to Nigeria and established this kingdom. So the connection was known. So when the African came to America, and when he had pride and dignity, and he knew the Prophet Muhammad was black, there's no way that any cracker could tell him he was inferior. So the white people had to get rid of it. No Islam. Break it. If you see someone trying to face the East, kill them. If you see someone talking that silly talk, assalamu alaikum, kill them. If you see someone trying to read a book, kill them. Beat them and beat them and beat them and beat them. Put black leaders over these niggers to tell everything they do. And they will give some rewards to these black leaders. If they want to rape some of those black women in the field, as long as the master isn't looking at her, go ahead and rape her. If her husband's looking too, you can't do anything. If her brother's looking, you can't do anything. That's the reward that the system gave that Uncle Tom, pretending Negro leader. The reward was to abuse his people, to wear the white man's old clothes, to administer the punishment, to make the blacks beg him, call him mister when white man wasn't around. He said, I may not be white to the white people, but I'm gonna be white to the niggers. So you didn't hate the white man, you hated each other. That's the one you saw with the whip every day. The white man was behind the scenes manipulating. When the white man wanted to have sexual intercourse with a black woman, he told that field supervisor, go and bring them to me. My sons feel frisky. Some of these men were sadists. They said, black man, bring your woman here. You ain't nothing and she ain't nothing. So as that black, and made him watch. And as that black woman looked up and saw that man and thought about her husband, thought about her son, she went into revulsion and part of her personality disappeared. As the black man looked at his woman being raped and knew he couldn't do anything, and she was pleading in her eyes, please, my love. For 200 years, that's how you live. Something went out of the personality. Something went out of the personality. A longing was there. Now, when you were weak in that condition, you couldn't rely on Islam. They made the black eat pork to make sure he was not a Muslim. That's why you love it today. You love pork more than any other meat. There's no one in this country that loves pork as much as the ex-slave. Why? Because it was the litmus test as to whether or not you still believe in the God of your fathers. You eat pork ears, pork feet, pig intestines. That was the test. It's not an accident. That was designed by Whitey to make sure that you didn't have any vestige of the faith left in you. He wanted it all out. He wanted you crippled. You were to do work and nothing more. He didn't want you with a life. He didn't want you to know how to read. He wanted you to be a slave. If he raped you, there was no penalty. The law said that the white man could do anything to you. He could whip you, he could slap you, he could kick you, he could work you from sun up to sundown. You couldn't go to a labor union, you couldn't go to an administrative hearing, you couldn't go to Social Security. You had no rights. Over 244 years, living in drudgery, living in misery, no hope. You saw no future. You didn't see how you were going to ever get out of it. And inside, you became a zombie. Death. Worse than the Jews. Worse than what Hitler had done. Because it dealt with an intangible, something inside that's hard to reach. That's what happened. That's why it makes it so difficult for us to conceive of ourselves building a pyramid. For 240 years, you were taught you were absolutely nothing. That's why it's so hard to think about a house 8,000 years ago with a toilet. That's why it's so difficult to imagine the caves in Algeria. I saw them. You can get it from the National Geographic. Caves with pictures painted on the wall of black people 8,000 years ago riding chariots. The Watusis. Black as coal, riding in the chariots. Hard to believe because of this gigantic brainwashing that has been put on us. And they had this Uncle Tom flunky leader to watch you and keep you in your place and report to Whitey, and Whitey could replace him whenever he wanted because he had no skills. This man had no qualification. His only qualification was loyalty, blind submission to the white man. So Whitey would tell the other slave, if one of you snitches and give me something worthwhile, then I might put you in his place. Blacks fought each other for crumbs and the white man's dirty clothes. And we're doing it today.